Work together as uplifted animals against the evil S.I.M.O.N before it releases the virus. Use implants, weapons, and noodles, yes noodles, to fight his minions in All Hoomanz Are Dead.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play All Hoomanz Are Dead, game designed by Victor Santoro. We are using a prototype copy of the game, so the rules and components may not be final.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant.
Let's get to the game.
In All Hoomanz Are Dead, players are sentient animals scavenging to survive in a high-tech facility in which the powerful artificial intelligence known as the Synthetic Intelligent Multi-Organism Network, or S.I.M.O.N, has wiped out the humans who created it. Working together, players will explore, level up, fight monsters, deal with drones and make the best use of the loot they find in order to locate S.I.M.O.N's fusion cores and blow them up before the menace can spread. For the bulk of this video, I'll be taking you through the standard difficulty 4 to 5 player rules, and I'll explain some of the differences for other modes at the end. To set up, choose the S.I.M.O.N board which matches your player count, and set it up next to the yard. This contains the power drinks, defense cubes and drones, all of which are limited by their number of components. Place the S.I.M.O.N upgrade marker at 0 and add 2 of the 15 drones to the rightmost slots of the assembly line. These 2 items form parts of your lose condition if the upgrades ever reach the top, or there are no drones left in either the drone yard or assembly line, then you'll lose the game. Shuffle face down the 3 decks of cards, mystery, loot and monsters. Set up the room tiles. Separate the med bay, this is the only double-sided tile, and find the 4 S.I.M.O.N brains, which all look like this, and the 4 fusion cores, which all have a green border. Randomly separate the remaining tiles into 4 equal stacks, add 1 S.I.M.O.N brain and 1 fusion core to each, shuffle each substack separately, and stack them all on top of each other into a single stack. Place your draw deck off to the side, and place the med bay in the center of the table. Keep a supply of clear tokens nearby. Each player chooses one of the cybernetically enhanced animal characters known as an uplifted. Take that character's player board and 3 defense cubes and 2 power drinks. Take your 4 matching coloured level ups, which are powers that you can upgrade to through the game. Each of these has 2 sides, the coloured side, which is always positive, and the darker feral side. Each player has 1 positive feral effect, and the others range from neutral to negative. Note that you also start with 1 pre-printed feral effect, and this is always positive. All players' character meeples begin in the med bay. Choose a first player who takes the combatinator. You'll be handing this around from player to player to keep track of whose turn it is. Lay out 15 loot cards face up and then go around the table drafting them into your hands. Players may pass and some of them may be left behind and discarded, so players may have unequal numbers of cards when you're done. The only restriction is the maximum hand limit is 10. Players may now equip item cards into their equipment slots, excluding the locked one. Each slot at the bottom may hold 1 card of a matching type, while the slot on the left may hold any number of implant cards. Any unequipped cards remain in your hand and you're now ready to play. All Hoomanz Are Dead is played in rounds, and each round is played in turns, starting from the first player and going clockwise around the table. After all players have taken their turns for the round, S.I.M.O.N will take 1 turn before play passes back to the first player. On a player turn, you'll begin by equipping cards and then deciding whether you're going to prepare for attack or prepare to defend. Then you'll take 2 actions, which mostly involves moving, exploring new rooms, and encountering the things you find. You may also take any number of free actions, and this particularly includes discarding combinations of loot cards to craft items, or consuming noodles for their immediate effects. On S.I.M.O.N's turn, you'll resolve all of S.I.M.O.N's unlocked abilities, which become more numerous and deadly as the game proceeds. This will largely involve producing, deploying, and utilising drones. Drones have a mixed impact on gameplay. Within certain constraints, you have some ability to predict and use their abilities to your advantage as the players. But as S.I.M.O.N upgrades, they become less flexible and more dangerous. S.I.M.O.N doesn't really care if you manage to use the drones to your advantage. All S.I.M.On's interested in is upgrading. To win the game, players must find and destroy at least 3 of these 4 fusion cores, which are these green tiles which were layered throughout the deck. You can destroy a room by crafting and setting off a bomb, or by calling an airstrike with a heliport and 4 helicopters. While destroying these is necessary, it's also a double-edged sword. These fusion cores have some of the most helpful actions in the game, and once you've destroyed the room, you lose access to those actions. As such, you'll want to think tactically about how quickly or slowly you achieve your goals. The game can be lost in 2 ways, either by the complete upgrade of S.I.M.O.N, or when all drones have been moved out of the drone yard and assembly line and onto the map. Also be aware that you'll face many combats through the game and your characters may be killed during those combats, but this is not the end. While this will cost you some actions and efficiency, you'll always respawn in the medbay on your next turn. A player turn is broken up into 3 distinct steps which are resolved in order. The first of those steps, which is called tick-tock, occurs only if there is a deployed bomb on the map, so we'll come back to that later. The second step is called Get Ready, and this is where you'll determine whether you're going to be preparing for attack or defense on this turn. Firstly, you may choose to either equip or unequip cards from the bottom slots of your player board. Like in Setup, if you choose to equip, then you must place a single card and it must match the type shown on that slot. However, unlike in Setup, you are not allowed to equip or unequip cards from your implant slot. Next, choose to prepare attack or defense. If you prepare attack, count up all of the swords which are showing on your cards and level ups. Add those to your minimum attack, which is the number at the bottom of this dial. It varies by player. Now set your combatinator to the result. So here it would be 2 plus 7 for a total of 9. Make no change to your number of defense cubes. On the other hand, if you prepare defense, then you'll set your combatinator to the minimum strength, and then count up all of the shields on your cards and level ups. Gain that many defense cubes from the yard. If the yard is empty, you won't be able to add any more defense to your character, since that is a limited resource. In this way, you'll see that attack and defense work differently. With defense, every time you prepare defense, you keep adding cubes and they'll carry over from turn to turn, while with attack, you will reset your strength to minimum when you start a new turn. In other words, a prepared attack does not carry between turns. Then you may take 2 actions. Most of your actions are going to be to move, and then possibly to interact with the location you get to. Standard movement is from one tile to an orthogonally adjacent tile through an open hallway. You cannot move through a solid wall. You cannot move through a red door unless a specific effect allows you to do so. Other special movement options are that if you have an effect that allows you to, you may move from one trap door to another. And if you're at a helipad, you may discard a card with a helicopter to move anywhere. When you move off the discovered map, then you'll find a new room. Draw the top room tile from the deck, and then place it in any configuration which matches up with the open hallway you walked through. Nothing else needs to line up. Then if you enter any one of these 4 room types, and the room hasn't previously been marked with a clear token, then you must resolve that room now. If you enter a room with 1 or more loot icons, then draw the matching number of loot cards from the deck into your hand and mark the room as clear. As in setup, you're limited to 10 total cards in hand, and if you draw above, you must discard down. You can't equip the card you just gained. That can only happen during the get ready phase of your turn. At any time during your turn, except during combat, you can exchange cards with a player who's in the same room as you. Just be aware that while most loot is good, not all of it is. There are some infected loot cards which, when you draw, you must immediately place into one of your unlocked equipment slots. This will block the slot, block the card underneath, and give you a negative effect until you can find one of the few effects in the game that gets rid of it. When you enter a mystery room, draw, resolve, and discard one card from the mystery deck. Then mark the room as clear. These are a mixed bag. Blue cards are good, red cards are negative, and purple cards are empty rooms. When you enter a turret room, you encounter a turret which shoots you in the head. Immediately lose 5 defense cubes and mark the room as clear. If through this or any other effect you lose your last defense cube, then your character has died. If it's your turn ends. Whether it's your turn or not, you discard all items equipped to bottom slots on your player board, but keep everything else, and move your character to the med bay. You must spend the first action of your next turn respawning, which means you gain 3 defense cubes. If there are not enough cubes in the yard, other players must volunteer some of theirs. When you enter a room with this icon, you find a monster. Draw the top card from the monster deck and then engage it in combat. Compare your initiative value with that of the monster. Whoever has the higher number is faster, with ties going to the monster. If the player is faster, then the player may choose to escape from the battle. Simply discard the monster and return to your previous tile without marking it clear. Otherwise, you'll fight a single round of combat, with the faster first attacking the slower, and then the slower attacking the faster if the slower survived the first attack. When the monster attacks you, lose 1 defense cube for each of the monster's attacks. If you ran out of defense cubes, then you would die, as described before for the turret. You would also discard the monster, and you would not mark the room as clear. When a player attacks the monster, reduce the player's combinator value by the defense on that monster, but to no lower than your minimum. So in this case, I would reduce from 7 to 3. In this case, from 7 to the minimum of 2. If your strength value before you did this was equal or higher than the monster's defense, then the monster is killed, and you add that monster card into your hand. It now acts as if it were another loot card, and mark the room as clear. If both player and monster have done their single attack and neither side has died, the combat is a draw. Simply discard the monster and mark the room as clear. There are several things you can do at the start of a combat to tip things in your favour. If a monster has a weakness, which is indicated by one of these weakness icons, and if you have a matching icon on one of your equipped items, then this is called a maneuver, and it allows you to choose one of the enemy's attributes, speed, attack, or defense, and reduce it to a value of 1. For example, here I could drop speed to 1 and now I'd be faster, or I could drop defense to 1 and I'd have enough to win. You could consume a power drink. This lets you add 3 to your strength, defense, or initiative. You could use noodles. Discard a noodles card from your hand and resolve the effect printed on it. Or you can use support. If there's another player in the same or an adjacent room connected by a hallway, then you may use one of that player's maneuvers, and when losing defense points, you can lose them from the supporting player instead. Be sure to take note of skills. This is any passive effects printed in text on the enemy or your loot cards. Finally, you may end up facing multiple monsters on the same turn. either by finding consecutive monster rooms or the 2-monster room. For the room with 2 monsters, you must draw and completely resolve the first monster before drawing and resolving the second. Any attack points that you lose in an earlier combat are not regained for a later one. The combatinator is only reset at the start of a turn when you prepare attack. The cards you're collecting in hand will be an important part of 3 of the important free actions you'll be taking, which are leveling up, crafting, and using noodles. You can do these at any time on your turn except during combat. Leveling up is how you gain access to these individual player powers you are given at the start of the game. The first time you want to level up, simply pay any 1 monster card to the discard pile, choose one of your upgrades, and place it onto the level 2 slot. You now have access to this ability. Going to level 3 costs 2 monsters and level 4 costs 4 monsters. Crafting lets you spend certain combinations of cards from your hand in order to build what's shown on the crafting table. This table shows you the cost as well as any restrictions on when and where you can do it. I'll explain most of these as we go along, but some of the ones we can already understand are that you can spend any monster card and a power drink to immediately win a combat, or you can spend 2 noodles and a power drink to get your next level up. Throughout all crafting, an implant counts as wild for any other yellow icon. The other card-related free action is to consume noodles. Simply discard the card from your hand to resolve its effect. In some cases, these can be resolved outside your turn. There are 4 fusion core rooms layered throughout the deck. Entering one of these rooms doesn't immediately trigger anything, but they all have special and powerful abilities, often which you'll need to activate with one of your 2 actions for the turn. These rooms are never cleared, you can always activate them as often as you like. The lab gives you a number of passive abilities. While you're in there, you're allowed to equip or unequip implants during your get ready phase. This is the only time other than during setup you're allowed to do this. You also have 2 powerful crafting options available. You can discard any 2 cards with the weakness icons on them to return any 2 drones from the board to the drone yard. Or you may return one of each of those 4 icons and a power drink to reverse 1 S.I.M.O.N upgrade. The factory gives you a lot of flexibility over cards, and while there as an action, you may look through and take a card of your choice from the loot or monster discard piles. The EMP room gives you another way of disrupting drones. As an action, you can destroy all drones in that room and all orthogonally adjacent rooms, returning them to the drone yard as usual. And finally, as an action in the reactor, you may mutate. This gives you flexibility over your level ups and lets you flip a bad feral level up back to its good side, or a good one to its feral side to unlock the 1 positive feral upgrade you have, or it lets you swap 1 level up for another one on either side, letting you pivot your tactics through the game. To win, you must blow up 3 of the 4 fusion cores, and there are 3 ways to do this. The first option is to craft a regular bomb. To do this, you must discard a blade, a tool, and a gun, or a single monster card which has the bomb icon on it. You must be in the fusion core you're trying to blow up, and you must be able to give up 3 defense cubes from your character. Then set the bomb with the cubes on it into your room. The second way is to craft a short fuse bomb. You'll want 4 matching tools, blades, or guns, remembering that implants are wild. Then take and set the bomb with 1 defense cube. In both cases, crafting the bomb is a free action, but arming it costs 1 action. At the start of each player's turn during the tick-tock phase, if there are any armed bombs, remove 1 cube from that bomb. When the last cube is removed, that bomb explodes. Remove the room. It now counts towards your victory condition. and look for any chains of orthogonally adjacent explosive rooms, each of which show these explosives in the corners. Any such adjacent chains of rooms also explode and are flipped face down. Drones or characters in exploded rooms are killed. Exploded rooms are now obstacles which players cannot explore or move through. The other way to destroy a fusion core is to call an airstrike. A single player must spend an action discarding 4 loot or monster cards which show the helicopter icon, and there must be at least one discovered helipad. The player doesn't need to be in it, it just has to have been found. Immediately destroy the chosen fusion core, setting off chain reaction explosions as before. Once you've destroyed 3 out of 4 fusion cores, the game is over and the players win. Now we'll talk about S.I.M.O.N. There are 2 points in the game where S.I.M.O.N attacks the players: on S.I.M.O.N's turn, and when a player discovers a S.I.M.O.N brain room. Immediately and only when one of these is flipped, advance the S.I.M.O.N upgrade marker by 1 step and deploy all drones currently on the assembly line into a single yellow bordered room of your choice. Then remove all clear markers from the board. Then, if it is a player's turn, and do note it's possible for these to be flipped on S.I.M.O.N's turn, in which case you would skip this step, that player's turn ends and the player devolves. The most recently placed coloured side upgrade must be flipped over to its feral side. Or if the player is still level 1, shuffle up all of the upgrades and randomly choose a feral one to place. If you're at least level 2 and all of your level ups are feral, skip this step. On S.I.M.O.N's turn, resolve each unlocked S.I.M.O.N ability from bottom to top. In this case I do assemble, explore and disarm, then stop there. For assemble, add 1 drone from the drone yard to the assembly line. If this is the only empty space and there are no yellow rooms on the board, then you skip assemble. But once there is a yellow room, this one can be filled, and as soon as the row is filled, you'll deploy all of those to a single yellow room of your choice, then perform 1 S.I.M.O.N upgrade with a new ability to take effect from this turn. For the Explore effect, 2 different drones will move towards the edge of the map and reveal a new tile. And you can very much use this one to your advantage in some cases. For each Explore, choose any 1 drone on the board without restriction, choose one of its nearest edges to move towards in a straight line, and move it up to 3 spaces. Once it leaves the map, it will stop and explore the next room from the deck. Drones ignore walls, doors, and exploded rooms when moving, but cannot enter red bordered rooms. So in this case, I could, for example, choose this drone and would have to move it here to its nearest edge, and could then choose this drone and move it either up or down to its nearest edge. Place the new rooms in any configuration you wish. If there are no drones on the board, perform assemble instead. Disarm makes it much more difficult to set off your long fuse bombs. To do this, choose 1 drone which is nearest or equal nearest to an armed bomb and within range 3, and then move it to that bomb. If the bomb has 2 or 3 cubes on it, then the drone successfully disarms it. On the other hand, if it encounters a bomb with a single cube, it fails to disarm it, meaning that as long as it's still there at the start of the next player's turn, it will explode with the bomb. If there are no drones in range of a bomb, then do another explore action, which could be with the same drone who did it before. For replicate, choose a single drone which is nearest to a S.I.M.O.N brain, which could include one already in a brain. Move the drone to its nearest brain and then place 1 or 2 new drones in that brain from the drone yard, which will depend on your player count. If no drone can replicate, you'll do another assemble. Finally, at level 4, you'll hack and slash. Choose 1 drone which is closest to a player, move to that player and deal 5 damage like a turret. If there's no one in range, you'll go back to replicate. The game ends immediately in defeat if the S.I.M.O.N upgrade marker ever reaches the top of the track, or if all drones are ever placed on the map. If the team destroys 3 fusion cores before this happens, then the players win. There are a few changes to balance the game out at different player counts and difficulties. The 2 and 3 player game has a longer assembly line than 4 and 5. Also, and critically, when you discover a S.I.M.O.N brain in the 2-player game only, you'll perform all the normal S.I.M.O.N brain steps except for devolving. The only way you'll flip an upgrade to its feral side is if you choose to do so in the reactor. You can choose to play with the easy side of the S.I.M.O.N board, which adds one more non-destructive step to the S.I.M.O.N upgrades, the service step. With this, you'll choose one drone to move to an adjacent cleared room and remove the clear token. It also means that S.I.M.O.N's more difficult upgrades take another cycle before they appear. You'll also use this board if you're playing solo, and your character will have 3 actions per turn instead of 2. Finally, if you want to amp up the difficulty, specifically at 5 players, you can use the hard side of the board where S.I.M.O.N will assemble 2 drones every turn instead of 1. And that's how to play All Hoomanz Are Dead.
Check out the project page of All Hoomanz Are Dead. We'll put the link in the description below so you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you next time.